G'day, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, the ute is out of the cave of dust and it is time to finally weld the old cowl panel in. So let's get into it. All right, so we're back. Tackling the cowl panel today. You would have been following, whoever's been following this build would have seen this has been 3 episodes. Well, this will be the 3rd episode on this cowl panel. First was removing it. Second was the pre-fitment of it. And when I hung the doors to try and line up this section here, trying to get the angles of that lip that was underneath on the plenum chamber that holds this top lip of the cowl panel. And this is the tricky part, is getting this little section here lined up with that section there. So I can sort of push that down, probably a mil, but you can see it's not exactly on there, but then this door isn't exactly spot on either. So I could probably raise this door a little bit to meet that up. I remember I ground out some here just to try and get a little bit more room around this bit, and it was actually too much there, so I'm going to have to fill that. You can sort of see these 2 lip areas here, so it goes up a little bit more there and then down a bit more there. So it may be that it's hitting a little bit there, might need to go down a bit, but that was original, so I didn't really touch that. So, you know, I'm pretty happy. As I said, it depends on how OCD you want to be with it. But that's pretty much close to what they were out of the factory. This side's slightly better, so, which is not what you want. You want it to be even. You can see that follows that line there. So anywhere sort of there or in between, you could be happy. And I think out of the factory, they were happy with that as well. No one's ever going to really pick up on it when you're this far away. So it just depends on, once again, how tight you want that panel gap there. I'm happy with that. I'll do a comparison to the HZ. I'll come and show you exactly how the gaps were from factory. Okay, so this is the HZ. So handy, once I've mentioned before, is having this out here for reference. But I don't reckon this panel's been off since it rolled out of the factory, and you can see the panel gaps there are pretty ordinary. Obviously a bit of rust over time may have moved things, but yeah, you can see, comes around this body line. It's pretty much exactly where I've got it on that driver's side anyway. So based on that, you know, it's pretty much ready to weld up. If I compare to the other side, she's a little bit tighter. This is a really nice panel gap here, and you can see it sort of joins that beautifully. Essentially, that's the way it should be, I reckon. I'm not going to get it to that point, unfortunately. It's just the way the panel is underneath. I'd fabricated some of that chamber. I can try and bash it down a little bit with a hammer, see if I can try and get that line. But yeah, as you saw from the other panel, it's if it's a couple of mil higher than that, no one's ever going to really notice, and that will do for me. All right, so other things to consider when you're obviously going to install this is, out of the factory from Rare Spares, they don't have a couple of things for the WB. The water jet for the windscreen wipers, the outlet is located on this point here. The Rare Spares panel doesn't come with that drill, or that hole drilled. So you have to pre-drill those before you install it. You could do it after, I guess. And the other things are the VIN number, the VIN plates and the identification plates, or the tags. So you got to get them off and just pop riveted on. Yeah, so your ID tags, 2 rivets there, a couple more tags over here as well, both with 2 rivets. So, but other than that, everything is the same. You've obviously got your windscreen wiper hole there. And if you have a look underneath, you've got these little nuts that you'll have to take out and put in. I could probably reuse these as well. Get some newer ones because they are, yeah, pretty brittle and faded. That's pretty much it. So really just need to get it in now. So got the roller out, gave her a bit of a wash down and just got the dust. There's a lot of dust inside this plenum chamber here. Got some overspray, unfortunately, on here, but that won't be seen. I may just give that a little light coat or something, or just leave it. Doesn't really worry, you're not going to see it. And yeah, just washed inside. The cab got a lot of that bog dust off. 2K. Did a bit of a wet test as it was sitting in the sun, just it was nice and wet. Did a bit of a wet test straight down the whole side, and yeah, it's looking good. Couldn't pick up any flaws, which is exactly what you want at this point. So now, just cleared everything that's flammable away from the area. Yeah, washed down the concrete, but got myself 2 fire extinguishers now as well, 1 water one and 1 dust one. So now I'm just going to start with this old cowl panel. So I'm just going to grind back. I'm going to use the old Metal X on the die grinder. It's been a long time since I actually got that out. Shave it. I'll remove these bolts for the new one and another 2 pop rivets there so I get the ID tags off. The general consensus from what I can see from the old spot welds, I'll just average it out. It's like, it looks like they're doing it every 55 mil. So, 60 mil. They're obviously just doing it by hand. Yeah, so around about 60. It's a lot of spot welds. They wouldn't have done so many if they didn't need it. So being a structural piece, you want to make sure that it doesn't lift off over time. So that's what I'll do. I'll start by getting these off, and then we'll rip into the new one. Okay, so got the ID tags out. Now with these washer outlets, it's not as straightforward as I thought. So that's obviously behind the ID tags there. So with these washer outlets, the hole isn't just a drill hole. You can see it better on this side. It's more like a pressed kind of hole with a special tool when they were probably molding this. So it's just got a little sort of ridges on each corner, and that's to stop this from rotating when it clips in with those little expandable plastic ridges there. Clips in, and then when it hits those edges there, it doesn't move. If you were to clip it into just a normal hole, which is roughly this size, it just spins around. Yeah, so if you put it into the one with the ridges in it, you can try and spin it, and it's locked in because of that. I'm not too sure how to do that other than just drill it to roughly this, the inside of those ridges, and then just file out the 2 corner bits, and that should do it. All right, so I've just got a pen and paper, put the paper underneath and just traced that template for that inside for the washer outlet. Yeah, it's probably the width of that biro's edge thinner. So when I trace around it again on the panel, it should be around about the same. So I guess the way I'd look at it is if I would draw, so that's the way I'm going to do it. I'll drill a hole that diameter in the middle, which is right at the edge of these little indents, and then I will file out these little sections by hand afterwards. They also point in, I'm not too sure the angle, but you can see about that angle pointing towards the edge of that. So obviously that shoots it up on a diagonal into the middle of the windscreen. So that's also important to get those angles right. The other one's obviously the other direction. So there you go, it's never as easy as you think. So place this cowl panel back on the ute again, and I'm pretty happy with it. There's not much manipulation. I remember the last time I test fit it, I did a lot of the hard yakka then, bending and stuff like that. So it slots in quite nicely. There's a little bit of a gap on that side. You can see it's just a bit more, but I reckon that could be part of the actual press. It could be a little bit less metal there than the other side, because these 2 sides line up pretty accurately. So I reckon I'm just going to take it off. I might just have a little bit look at that side, but yeah, take it off and start drilling all the holes out at 60 millimeters apart. But I might actually just locate them in situ here and drill them in situ, because it's got a bit of an arc on it. If you put it on a flat bench and sort of put a bit of weight on it, you could risk warping it slightly. But this has already got a taper, so it's just easier for me to drill here and just back it off when I get to the end. Also, that'll help expose the metal underneath, so I don't have to go and grind all the KBS off. I can just grind off the areas that need to actually be adhered to in the weld. And that way it's going to be more rust resistant once it's placed on. Just grab this section here. That's not a great fit, as you can see. The holes don't really line up that well. And yeah, that's quite annoying. But the HZ one actually doesn't have that, but because this is sandblasted and primed and ready to go, I might as well just fix it, otherwise I'll have to go and do the other one. So I'll make that work somehow. But other than that, it's time to start drilling, I think. Alright, so all the holes are drilled and I've taken back the epoxy just a little bit around the back and the front, just so it's got something to adhere to on the weld. Also over there, yeah, I've just scuffed back the KBS. So it'll be pretty much, I'm going to put some seam sealer here before I do it, in between each one. And before I do that, I'm going to just do a light spray of zinc spray. So just to cover up those areas that are bare metal. If you do a light coating, you should be able to weld through it. Generally, like a weld through primer is zinc. So yeah, this doesn't say weld through primer, couldn't find any, but it'll be close enough. So yeah, I'll cover all that lightly in the back of it, and also, yeah, once we do the front and weld it, I'll cover that as well. And that will be pretty much it. I'll start doing that now. Basically, I've got it in position now, and I've managed to do one of those little wiper outlets. It was quite hard. I just got a series of files, an air tool. So yeah, I got a template from the original and just drew 2 lines where that was resting on that edge. And then based on that, I knew where from this edge it was 33 mil from the edge of the outlet, the cutout. And yeah, I just taped it down, drew it out, and then drilled a main hole, and then just got the small little files out, the air tool, and just did it very slowly. Kept test fitting it until it popped in. I've got to do the other one. I decided to do it in situ because it's just easier when it's in situ, as opposed to putting too much weight on it on the desk, potentially bending it. So now I'm pretty happy with the way it's sitting. You know, even though the HZ goes to there, I'm happy with this sitting around about there on both sides. Once the doors are shut, you can't actually move this cowl panel side to side anyway. All right, so now it's all zinced, primed, and all the holes are there. I did notice when I took the old one off, it did actually have some seam sealer on the underside in certain areas. You can sort of see it running along that middle section, but it also would have been along there and along there. So anyway, I've got some leftover seam sealer from doing the underside of the body. So I'm just going to put a little dab in between each section, and I could probably run a bead just alongside there actually. I don't want it to just squeeze in and go near the weld, so I might just keep it amongst these, and then that will be a little bit of sealer under there at least, and then can't say I didn't try. All right, so it's all clamped in. I've run out of clamps, so I'll probably just move this one along as I go. I'm going to start on this side. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it's lined up. It's probably, if anything, a couple of mil out this way. But yeah, look, I'm happy with it. Can't even tell. Just measured it off those two screw holes there. You can sort of see that one's slightly, if anything, slightly higher, but you will never notice it. So seam sealer's on. The clamps are pushing down as much as possible and lined the doors up obviously. So now I'm just going to get the welder. Hopefully I get a good earth. I might have to grind back a bit of the paint to get an earth if this doesn't weld. And then I'm just going to go along and start to weld her in. So here we go. Welded on, yet to be ground back, but I just put some zinc over the oxidized metal for now, just so it doesn't spot rust. Cover it up, then I'll have to go back and grind the tops off. Some of the welds weren't too bad. Was getting a little bit of, you can see they're pretty good. It's very low, but yeah, there's a few ugly ones. But yeah, at the start I was getting a bit of, I wasn't getting much penetration with the welds. It was sort of like fizzing and bubbling, and yeah, it was probably because of the combination of the earth and maybe some of the silicon and stuff, and the epoxy was still underneath. So yeah, the door gaps, they pretty much replicate the factory gaps around the plenum. Considering that I didn't get the plenum chamber itself, and I just fabricated that section, it's probably made it a little bit harder to get really flush on those corners. That door needs to be rehung, so I reckon I could just tidy that bit up by just adjusting the door. But as a whole, yeah, they're pretty good. So the next stage is to scuff up the epoxy that's already come on this panel, and then put my 2K primer down on top of that, and then start sanding ready for base coat. I'm not going to epoxy this because it's already got epoxy on it. What's the point? And yeah, that's about it really. I'll just 2K primer, blend it in, and fill any lows if there are, but being a new panel, it shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, and all in there is done as well. Yeah, if you're after a nice heat blanket to try and minimise hitting the paint, I just put this, it's like a fire blanket you just throw over fires, and in case of emergency, you see them a dime a dozen. perfect for welding. So I just put it over the doors and yeah, not one mark on that primer. Really happy. It's another step forward. I'm punching out the episodes now, and this is the way it's going to be all March until the thing gets painted. So piece by piece coming together. So yeah, primer will be next on here. Once that's primed, then I'm going to do my first attempt at base coat. So I'll do this firewall, take the doors off, do the insides of the doors and etc. And then I'll do the insides of the door jambs and the inner guards. And that will require a little bit of welding on the inner guards as well. So I'm really moving forward now with some pace, and I'm really loving it actually. I'm loving this part of the builds. Again, getting on the welder and doing all the fun stuff. All right, that's it for another episode. So smashing them out at the moment, and the ute is starting to look the better for it. All right, that's it for this episode. Once again, thanks for watching. Follow us on Instagram. I'm posting stuff in between as always, and you'll see the link there. And I'll see you on the next one.